I never expected her to remember my name, let alone say it like it mattered. It wasn't even the kind of place where people usually remembered anything. Just a small neighborhood cafe tucked between a pharmacy and a dry cleaner, with foggy windows and chairs that never matched. The kind of cafe where the menu stayed the same for years because no one complained enough to force change. I came there most mornings because it gave me something to do that wasn't scrolling through my phone in bed. I'd sit in the same corner, near the outlet, pretending I needed to charge my phone when really I just liked having a reason to stay. I'd order something I didn't even enjoy that much, black coffee, sometimes a croissant, because ordering something sweet felt like admitting I wanted comfort. And most mornings, I didn't talk to anyone. That's how it started. Quiet. Normal. And then one Tuesday, she walked in. I noticed her before I meant to. Not because she was loud or trying to be noticed. She wasn't. She moved like she had places to be, but wasn't in a hurry. Like she had learned how to arrive without apologizing for taking up space. Mid-40s, maybe older. Hair pulled into a loose bun that looked like she did it without a mirror. She wore a long beige coat, even though it wasn't that cold. She had a tote bag hanging off one shoulder, and the way she held it made me think she was used to carrying other people's things too. She looked tired. Not messy tired. Not I didn't sleep tired. Just lived in tired. Like someone who had been responsible for a long time. I went back to my phone. Pretended I hadn't noticed. That's what I always did. But then I heard the barista say, "Same as usual, Mrs. Nyla." And she smiled. A small one. Like she didn't want to waste it. "Yes," she said. "And don't call me that. You'll make me feel like I should be paying rent to myself." The barista laughed. It wasn't forced. It was the kind of laugh you give someone you actually like. I looked up again before I could stop myself. She was leaning on the counter with her fingers loosely wrapped around her keys, tapping them softly against the wood like she was keeping time with something only she could hear. Her hands were calm. Not manicured, not flashy. Just steady. The kind of hands that probably made lunches, folded laundry, paid bills on time. She turned her head slightly, like she felt my eyes. And our gaze met. It wasn't dramatic. No movie pause. No music. Just a brief moment where her eyes stayed on mine a second longer than they needed to. Then she looked away. But not quickly. That was the part that stuck. A few days later, I saw her again. Same cafe, same time. This time she sat at the table next to mine. Not close enough to be on purpose, but close enough that I could smell her perfume when she shrugged off her coat. Something soft. Clean. Like soap and warm fabric. She pulled out a book, but she didn't open it right away. She just stared at the cover like she was thinking about something else entirely. I tried to focus on my phone, but my thumb kept hovering over messages I hadn't sent. I had this thing I did sometimes, opening a chat with an old friend, typing "hey," and then deleting it. Like if I never sent the message, I never had to deal with the silence after. I was in the middle of doing that when she spoke. You always sit in the same spot. Her voice wasn't accusing, just observant, like she was stating a fact about the weather. I looked up, caught off guard. "Yeah, habit." She nodded slowly, like she understood habits better than most people. Then she glanced at my cup. "You drink it black," she said. "That's either discipline or sadness." I let out a short laugh before I could stop myself. It surprised me even. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe I just don't like sugar." She tilted her head. "That's what people who don't like sweetness always say." There was a pause after that. Not awkward, just quiet. She folded the corner of a napkin slowly, carefully, like she needed something to do with her hands. I noticed her wedding ring wasn't there. Not even a tan line. And I hated myself a little for noticing. "What's your name?" she asked. I blinked. Adam." She smiled again. Softer this time. "Adam," she repeated, like she was testing how it fell in her mouth. Then she looked down at her untouched coffee and said, almost casually, "My son has a friend named Adam." That sentence should have ended the conversation. Instead, it opened something. Because she didn't say it like a warning. She said it like a coincidence she wasn't sure she should admit. I nodded, unsure what to do with that information. "Oh, yeah." She looked at me again, eyes steady. And then she said the first line that would later replay in my head 100 different ways. "It's just a conversation," she said, like she was reassuring me. Or maybe herself. I went home that day and realized I hadn't checked my phone once on the walk back. That night, I stared at my screen longer than usual. And when a notification finally popped up, my stomach tightened. Because it wasn't from my friends. It was from an unknown number. Hey Adam, this is Nyla. Don't overthink it. It's just a conversation. I stared at the text for a full minute before I even breathed properly. Hey Adam, this is Nyla. Don't overthink it. It's just a conversation. The words felt too familiar, like she'd said them while looking straight at me, and now they were sitting in my hand like something I wasn't supposed to hold. I didn't reply right away. Not because I didn't want to, because replying meant admitting that I'd been waiting for her to reach out. I read it again. Then again, my thumb hovered over the keyboard, and I typed sure, deleted it. Type hi, deleted it too. Finally, I just wrote, okay. A minute later, she reacted with a simple thumbs up. That should have made it feel harmless. It didn't. The next time I saw her, it wasn't at the cafe. It was outside her house. My friend Hamza's house. The place I'd been to 100 times, sitting on the same couch, playing games, eating whatever his mom made without thinking about it. The same front gate. Same narrow driveway. Same tree in the corner that dropped leaves like it didn't care what season it was. Except now, I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that his mom had my number. She was in the front yard, watering the plants, wearing an old gray hoodie and loose pants. Her hair wasn't tied up this time. It fell over one shoulder, slightly messy, like she hadn't planned on being seen. She looked up when she heard the gate creak. Her eyes landed on me and didn't move away. Adam, she said. Not Beta. Not son. Not the way Annie's usually said your name like you were 12. Just Adam. I said, suddenly feeling like my voice didn't belong to me. She smiled faintly and went back to the plants. Hamza isn't home. He went out with his cousins. I didn't know, I said, and immediately hated how stupid I sounded. She didn't laugh. She just nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. There was a long pause. The water kept running. A bird somewhere made noise and then stopped like it got embarrassed. You came anyway, she said. I shrugged. Yeah. She turned the tap off and wiped her hands on the side of her hoodie. Then she looked at me again. You got my message. I did. And you overthought it. I didn't deny it. She stepped closer, but not too close. Still a safe distance. Still a distance that could be explained. She pointed toward the porch. Sit for a minute. You look like you're about to faint. I'm Fina. You're not, she said, like it was a simple fact. So I sat. She sat too, one step above me, holding her phone loosely in her hand. Her feet were bare, tucked under her. She looked comfortable in her own space, like she wasn't performing. I looked down at my hands because looking at her felt like stealing. You know, she said softly, Hamza talks about you a lot. My stomach tightened. In a good way. In a boy way. She tilted her head. He says you're quiet, that you don't complain much. That sounds like a bad review. She gave a small smile. No, it means you don't ask people for things. I swallowed. She was too accurate. She leaned her elbows on her knees and stared at the garden like she was watching something invisible. I used to be like that, she said. I looked up. Used to. She hesitated. The pause felt heavy. Then she said, before I got married, I thought being strong meant never needing anyone. I didn't know what to say. I just listened. Her voice got quieter, almost like she was talking to herself. Then you spend 20 years being needed, and you realize you don't even remember what it feels like to be wanted. The word wanted landed between us like something fragile. I shifted slightly, my knee brushing the edge of the step. She didn't move away. And suddenly I saw it. How risky this was. How wrong it would look. Hamza's mother sitting on the porch with me, like we were equals. Like we were friends. Like we were anything other than what we were supposed to be. I imagined Hamza walking in right then, seeing us, and his face changing. I imagined my own mother finding out. I imagined her being judged in ways I'd never have to be judged. And still, my chest felt full in a way it hadn't in months. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, I said quietly, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. She turned her head toward me. Her eyes softened. For a second, she looked like she wanted to say something else. Something bigger. Instead, she reached down and brushed a small piece of dirt off my sleeve with 2 fingers. It was nothing, just a gesture. But her touch was warm and careful, and it lasted half a second too long. Then she pulled her hand back like she'd remembered the rules, and smiled like she hadn't broken any. "It's just a conversation," she said again. But this time, her voice didn't sound convincing. After that day on the porch, I stopped going to the cafe. Not because I didn't want to see her, because I wanted to see her too much. It's funny how your brain tries to fix things by making them smaller. Like if I removed the place, the feeling would fade too. Like attraction was just geography, but it didn't fade. It followed me in stupid ways. In the way I'd open my phone and reread her text like it was a secret letter. In the way I'd pause outside Hamza's gate longer than necessary, even when I knew he wasn't home. In the way I'd catch myself imagining her voice saying my name again. Just Adam. Not Beta. Not Tom. Just me. Hamza noticed before anyone else did. Of course he did. We were sitting in his room one evening, the fan making that clicking noise like it was tired of existing. He was scrolling through reels, half laughing at things that weren't even funny. Then he looked up randomly and said, "You don't come over like before." I shrugged. Busy. With what? I didn't answer fast enough. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not suspicious, just curious. Like he was putting pieces together without knowing what picture he was making. "My mom asked about you," he said. My throat tightened. "Yeah." She was like, "Adam hasn't come by." Hamza mimicked her voice badly, then laughed. "Bro, she never asks about anyone. Not even my cousins." I forced a laugh too, but it came out wrong. Too sharp. Too fake. Hamza stared at me for a second longer than normal. "What?" I said. He shrugged. "Nothing. Just weird." That night, I went home and lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was 12 again and had done something I couldn't name. My phone buzzed at 11:47. "Nyla, you stopped coming. Everything okay?" I stared at the message until my eyes started to burn. I typed, "Yeah, just busy." Then deleted it. Typed. I didn't want to make things awkward. Deleted that too. Finally I wrote, "Yeah, just tired lately." She didn't reply immediately. When she did, it was only 2 words. "Nyla, come tomorrow." No emoji. No explanation. Like she was used to giving instructions and people following. And the worst part was, I wanted to. The next day, I went to Hamza's house at around noon, telling myself it was normal. Just a visit. Just checking in. Just being a friend. The gate was unlocked. I walked in quietly. Inside, the house felt different when Hamza wasn't there. Too clean. Too quiet. Like the walls were holding their breath. I heard her voice from the kitchen. "Adam." The way she said it made my stomach twist. Like she'd been expecting me. I stepped in and found her standing by the counter with a cup of tea already poured. Steam rising. A small plate of biscuits beside it. Like she'd planned the whole thing. "You remembered," I said before I could stop myself. She raised an eyebrow. "You think I don't remember things?" I sat down slowly. My hands didn't know what to do, so I folded them, then unfolded them. I picked up a biscuit, then put it back. She watched me with that quiet focus she had, like she was listening even when nothing was being said. "I shouldn't have texted you," she said suddenly. The words hit harder than they should have. My chest tightened. "Okay." She looked down at her tea, stirred it even though there was nothing to stir. "It wasn't appropriate," she added. The way she said appropriate made it sound like a word she hated. I tried to smile, but it didn't work. "Right?" A long silence stretched between us. She took a sip, put the cup down carefully. Her fingers lingered on the handle. Then she looked at me again. I didn't mean I regret it. My heart beat once hard, like it wanted to escape. I leaned forward without thinking. Not much, just enough that the space between us felt smaller. "I don't know what you want," I said quietly. Her eyes flicked to my mouth for half a second, then back to my eyes. "I don't know either," she whispered. The air in the kitchen felt thick, too warm, too close. Her hand moved toward mine on the table, slowly, like she was asking permission without words. Her fingers brushed mine, and for a moment, everything went silent inside my head. No rules, no AMSA, no age, no consequences. Just her, just me. I leaned in. She didn't pull away. Her breath hit my face, soft and unsteady, and then the front door opened. A loud, careless sound. Hamza's voice filled the hallway. "Amy, I'm home." Her hand snapped back like she'd been burned. I sat up so fast my chair scraped the floor. She stood too quickly, fixing her scarf, fixing nothing. And when Hamza walked into the kitchen, she smiled like she hadn't almost ruined her entire life in the space of one breath. Adam was just leaving, she said. But her eyes didn't look at Hamza. They stayed on me, like she was asking me not to say it out loud, like she was asking me to pretend that moment never happened. And I nodded, swallowing hard because I didn't trust my voice. Because if I spoke, I might have said the truth. That I didn't come there for tea. I came there for her. After that day, I actually stopped going. Not dramatically. Not with some "I can't do this anymore" speech. I just disappeared. Hamza texted once. Twice. Then stopped. Life moved the way it always does when you're young. Fast, careless, forgiving. You can vanish for weeks, and nobody thinks it's a tragedy. They just assume you got busy, or lazy, or distracted. Which was true. I was distracted. By the way her fingers had touched mine like it was an accident. By the way she'd said Adam was just leaving like she'd been saving herself with my name. By the way she couldn't look at her own son while she said it. So I stayed away. I thought distance would make me normal again. But distance doesn't erase things. It just gives them room to echo. One afternoon, I was walking back from the market with a small plastic bag cutting into my fingers. Eggs, bread, some cheap shampoo. Normal stuff. The kind of stuff that should have kept my mind quiet. Then I saw her. She was across the road near the park, standing by the bench under the old neem tree. No Amsa. No family. Just her, holding a paper cup of tea like she didn't know what to do with her hands anymore. For a second, I thought I imagined it. But then she turned slightly, and the sun hit her face, and I saw that tired expression again. The one that wasn't about sleep. It was about weight. She noticed me too. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just stared, like she'd been waiting for me to walk past her and pretend I hadn't seen her. I didn't. My feet moved before my brain decided anything. I crossed the road, feeling stupid, feeling 16, feeling guilty for breathing. When I got closer, I realized she looked different. Not dressed differently. Not older. Just guarded. Like she'd built something inside herself since the last time we spoke. "Hi," I said. She nodded once. Her voice was flat, controlled. I stood there awkwardly, the bag in my hand swinging slightly. The eggs bumped together inside like they were about to break. "You okay?" I asked. She let out a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's what you ask after disappearing." I swallowed. I didn't know what else to do. She looked down at her tea, stirred it slowly with a plastic spoon. A long pause. Cars passed. Kids shouted somewhere in the distance. Someone's ringtone played too loudly and then stopped. Normal life. But between us, nothing felt normal. "I saw you yesterday," she said. I blinked. "Where?" "At the cafe," she replied. My stomach dropped. "I didn't go," I said automatically. She lifted her eyes to me. "Not you." I froze. She continued, quiet but sharp. "A girl. Young. Laughing. Touching your arm like it was hers." My throat tightened. It was nothing. Just a classmate. Someone who talked too much. Someone who liked attention. Someone who didn't mean anything. But the fact that Nyla had seen it. The fact that she'd noticed. It made my chest ache in a way I didn't have a name for. "It wasn't," I started. She cut me off with a small shake of her head. "You don't owe me explanations." Her words were calm, but her fingers tightened around the paper cup so hard it crumpled slightly. I stared at that, because it said more than her voice ever could. "You're angry," I said. She scoffed softly. "No, I'm not angry." Another pause. Then she whispered, like she hated herself for admitting it. "I'm embarrassed." That one word hit me harder than jealousy ever could. Because it wasn't dramatic. It was human. Embarrassed. For feeling anything at all. "For what?" I asked, my voice low. She looked away, out toward the road. Her jaw clenched like she was trying to swallow something sharp. "For thinking," she started then stopped. She exhaled slowly. "For thinking that you were coming back because you wanted to," she finished. My heart thudded once, heavy. "I didn't want to," I said. She turned back to me immediately, eyes narrowed slightly, like she didn't trust that sentence. "Then why didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was ugly in a quiet way. Because I was scared of her. Not of her as a person, of what she did to my mind, to my peace. I didn't want to ruin your life, I said finally. Her lips parted slightly, like she hadn't expected that. She stared at me for a long moment, and her expression softened in the worst possible way, like she was tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. Then she stood up, slowly. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume again. Clean, warm, familiar. She looked up at me and said, almost like she was confessing to a crime, "You already did." My breath caught. Her hand lifted, hesitated, and then her fingers touched my wrist. Light, careful, like she was testing if I would pull away. I didn't. She held my wrist like it meant something, like it was the only thing keeping her from falling. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell me what you want, Adam." Her eyes flicked to my mouth again, and my body leaned forward before my brain could stop it. The space between us was so small now. Her breath was right there. Her hand tightened slightly, and I realized with a sick kind of clarity that if I kissed her this time, there wouldn't be any pretending after. No, just a conversation. No going back. Only the question hanging between us like a door half open. Was I about to walk through it? I didn't kiss her, not because I didn't want to, because her eyes changed right before it could happen. Like something inside her woke up and grabbed the steering wheel. Her hand slipped off my wrist. She stepped back, fast enough that it almost looked like fear. And then she laughed under her breath, dry, bitter. "God," she murmured, more to herself than to me. I stood there, frozen, holding a grocery bag like an idiot. "Nyla," I started. She shook her head. "No, don't." The way she said it wasn't angry. It was protective, like she was saving both of us from something we couldn't undo. She picked up her purse from the bench, her movements too careful, too controlled, like she was forcing her hands to behave. "I shouldn't have said that," she said. "What?" I asked, even though I knew. "Tell me what you want." She looked at me for a second, and the softness came back again. But it didn't stay. She swallowed. "You don't know what you're stepping into." I tried to smile. "I think I do." "No," she said firmly. "You don't." Then she turned away like the conversation was over. And I just stood there, watching her walk toward the road, feeling like I'd been pushed out of a room I didn't even know I'd entered. Before she crossed, she paused. Not to look at me, to check her phone. Her face tightened in a way I hadn't seen before. Then she slipped the phone in her bag and kept walking. I went home with the eggs unbroken and my chest cracked open. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it. Her hand on my wrist, her voice, her eyes. That moment where the world narrowed down to a single breath. Then the way she pulled away. Like she remembered something I didn't know. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I stared at it, confused, until the name appeared at the top. Hamza. It wasn't a text. It was a forwarded screenshot. A WhatsApp shot. I didn't understand at first. My eyes scanned it slowly, trying to make sense of the words. Then my stomach dropped. It was between Hamza and his mother. Between Hamza and Nyla. The timestamp was from earlier that day. Hamza. "Amy, are you okay? You look stressed." Nyla. "I'm fine." Hamza. "You're not fine. Did Dad call again?" Nyla. "Don't talk about him." Hamza. "He said he might come back. Is it true?" Nyla. "He's coming tomorrow. Just for a few days. For paperwork." My throat went dry. I kept reading, my thumb trembling. Hamza. "Why now?" Nyla. "Because he wants to sell the house." The words hit like cold water. Sell the house. The same house where she made tea, where she watered plants, where she sat on the porch and told me she'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. I scrolled down. There was more. Hamza. "Emmy, don't let him do that." Nyla. "He can. It's in his name, too." Hamza. "So what happens to us?" A long gap. Then her reply. Nyla. "We go wherever we have to." My fingers went numb. I stared at the screen like it was a bad joke. Then I noticed something else. At the bottom of the screenshot, Hamza had typed a message but hadn't sent it yet. It sat there in the chat box, like a thought he hadn't decided to release. And I could read it. Hamza. Unsent Amy. Is this because of Adam? My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt to breathe. I stared at that unsent line for a long time, my mind spinning in circles. Because suddenly everything made sense. The way she pulled back. The way her eyes changed. The way she said, "You don't know what you're stepping into." It wasn't just guilt. It was history. It was a man returning. A house being threatened. A life shifting under her feet. And me, young, stupid, temporary, standing too close to her at the exact moment her world was already collapsing. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I typed a message to her. "Are you okay?" Then deleted it. Hamza told me. Deleted. "I'm here." Deleted. My screen stayed blank, glowing in the dark like it was waiting for me to say the wrong thing. Outside, the street was silent. Inside, my thoughts wouldn't stop. And somewhere in another house, a woman I wasn't supposed to want was probably staring at her own phone too, wondering if she should call it just a conversation one last time. The next day, I found myself outside Hamza's gate without planning to. I told myself it was just concern, just checking in, just making sure everything was okay. But I knew better. The gate was closed this time. For the first time in years, it felt like a boundary. I stood there, staring at the metal bars like they could give me permission. Then I raised my hand and knocked. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to be heard. A minute passed. Then the door opened. Nyla stood there, not in her usual calm clothes, not in her soft auntie-at-home look. She was dressed properly. Simple shower camise, hair pinned back, lipstick that made her look sharper than she wanted to be. Like she was bracing herself for someone. Behind her, I could hear a man's voice. Deep, familiar in the way you recognize someone you've never met, because you've heard about them your whole life. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. Not shock, something worse. Relief. And fear sitting right beside it. "Adam," she said quietly. The man's voice stopped in the background. She didn't move out of the doorway, like she was blocking me from walking in, or blocking him from seeing me. "I shouldn't be here," I said. She stared at me for a moment, then stepped outside and gently pulled the door mostly closed behind her. The click of it shutting sounded louder than it should have. "I told you not to," she whispered. "I know." She looked away, jaw tight. "He's inside." I figured. Silence. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her dupatta, folding it, unfolding it. A nervous habit she probably didn't even realize she had. "Hamza didn't tell me," I said. "I saw it by accident." Her eyes flicked to mine. "You saw our messages." I nodded. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Of course you did." I swallowed. My throat felt dry. "I didn't come to ask questions," I said. "Then why did you come?" she asked, but her voice was tired. Not angry, like she already knew the answer and didn't want to hear it. I stood there, hands shoved into my pockets, because I didn't trust them. "I came because yesterday I paused. You looked like you were about to disappear." Her face softened just slightly. Then she shook her head. "I don't get to disappear. I have a son." I nodded, slowly. "Yeah." Another pause. The air between us was heavy. Not romantic, just real. Like we were two people standing too close to something that could burn. "I'm sorry," I said, the words coming out rough. "I didn't mean to make things harder." She let out a small laugh, but sounded broken. "You didn't make it harder." She looked down, voice dropping. "You made it lighter." That sentence hit me in the chest. I didn't move. I couldn't, because suddenly I understood what I'd been to her. Not a mistake, not a fantasy, just a moment where she wasn't alone inside her own life. Her eyes lifted again. "Adam," she said, carefully, like she was choosing each word the way you choose steps on a shaky staircase. "You're young. You still think life listens when you want something badly enough." I didn't answer. She continued, her voice almost a whisper. "I don't have the luxury of wanting." My chest tightened. "I do," I said softly. "And I want." I stopped myself. Her eyes widened, not because she didn't know, because she did, because hearing it out loud would make it real. And real things have consequences. Her lips parted like she wanted to tell me to stop, but she didn't. So I finished quieter than I thought possible. "I want you," I said. Her face went still, like every part of her was trying to hold together. She blinked once, slow, and her eyes turned glossy, but she didn't let anything fall. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Why?" I asked. She swallowed. Her voice cracked just slightly. "Because I might believe you." That was it. That was the breaking point. Not a scream. Not tears. Just that. A woman admitting she was 1 second away from letting herself be held by something she didn't deserve. I stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to step back. She didn't. I lifted my hand and touched her fingers gently, like I was asking permission again. Her hand was cold. She let me hold it anyway. Behind the door, the man inside cleared his throat, like the house itself was reminding her who she belonged to. Nyla looked toward the door for half a second, then back at me. Her voice was barely audible. "You should go." I nodded, my throat tight. "Okay." I didn't let go immediately. Neither did she, and before I turned away, she gave me the smallest smile, sad, grateful, almost embarrassed. The kind of smile that doesn't promise anything. It just admits something existed. And she squeezed my hand once. A simple human thing. And I walked away before either of us could ruin it by asking for more. 3 months passed. Not the kind of 3 months that feel like a montage. No music. No sudden glow-up. Just days stacking on top of each other like dishes left in the sink. Hamza stopped calling me after a while. Or maybe I stopped answering. I don't even remember who started the distance. It didn't matter. Some friendships don't end with fights. They end with silence that becomes normal. I still went to the cafe sometimes. Not every day like before, just when I didn't know what else to do with my morning. The same corner table, the same outlet, the same smell of burnt beans and old newspaper. And every time I walked in, my eyes still checked the door without permission, like my body hadn't accepted what my mind already knew. She wasn't coming. I'd sit there with my black coffee, staring at the steam like it was a message I couldn't decode. Some mornings I'd scroll through my phone and open our chat. The last message was still mine. Okay. It looked pathetic after everything. Sometimes I type something and stop. "How are you? Did he leave? Do you still think about me?" Then I'd erase it. Because there are some people you don't chase. Not because you don't want them, but because you respect what it costs them. One morning, at exactly 8:47, my phone buzzed. The time made my chest tighten before I even looked. I stared at the screen. A new message. "Nyla, coffee still black." That was it. No greeting. No apology. No explanation. Just that one line, like she'd picked up a conversation we never finished. My fingers hovered, shaking slightly. "Mia." A minute later, "Nyla, come by if you want." Hamza's at university now. The house is quiet. I reread it twice. Then a third time. The words weren't romantic. They weren't even brave. But they were an opening. And something inside me, something that had been stuck in pause for months, finally moved again. I went that afternoon. The gate was open. The plants in the yard looked healthier than before. Someone had trimmed them. Someone had cared. When I knocked, the door opened almost immediately. She stood there holding a cloth in one hand, like she'd been cleaning and stopped mid-motion. Her hair was tied back loosely. No lipstick this time. No automat. Just her. For a second, we didn't speak. We just looked at each other. She stepped aside. Not dramatically. Not like an invitation. Just a quiet allowance. Inside, the house smelled like tea and detergent. Familiar in a way that hurt. The kitchen was the same. Same counter. Same cups. Same small cracks in the tiles near the sink. She poured tea without asking, the way she always did. Like her hands remembered what her mind tried to forget. I sat at the table. She sat across from me. There was a silence so long I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Then she finally spoke. "He left," she said. I nodded slowly. "In the house." She exhaled. "He signed his share over. Not because he became a good man." A faint, dry smile. "Because he wanted to be free." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said the truth. "I thought about you every day." Her eyes dropped to the cup in her hands. Her fingers tightened around it. "I tried not to," she admitted. "I really tried." I leaned forward slightly. "And?" She looked up at me then. Her eyes were tired. Softer than before. But not afraid. "I'm not asking you for promises," she said quietly. "I don't have energy for that kind of love." I swallowed. "Okay." She studied my face like she was checking if I meant it. "I don't want to ruin your life," she whispered. I let out a small breath, almost a laugh. "You didn't ruin it." Then I paused, choosing the words carefully. "You just made it feel like it belonged to me again." Her lips trembled slightly, like she didn't want to smile, but couldn't stop it. She reached across the table. Not fast, not desperate, just steady. Her fingers touched mine, the same way they had that first time, careful like she was still learning what she was allowed to want. And this time, she didn't pull away. Outside, the street noise carried on. Bikes passed. A neighbor called someone's name. Life kept happening like it didn't care about our quiet little moment. But in that kitchen, everything finally felt simple. Not easy, just real. Later, when I left, she walked me to the door. I stood on the porch for a second, the same porch where everything started to crack open. She folded her arms loosely, watching me. Then she said it again. "It's just a conversation." I smiled, and for the first time, it didn't sound like a lie. "It always was," I said, and she nodded, like she understood exactly what I meant. Because some love stories don't start with fireworks. They start with black coffee at 8:47 a.m. and a woman who finally stops pretending she doesn't remember your name.